In this video, we'll talk about SQL Server database transaction log and its related issues. A very common issue with SQL Server transaction log when the log file is getting full or 100% full. What are the errors or symptoms the DBA face? What are the root causes for this? So let's create a scenario where I will be creating a database in full recovery mode, have a small transaction log file so I can fill it up, start a transaction, large transaction, and leave it open so no log truncation is possible. Let's look into this. I will create a demo. Okay, so I will be creating a database called log backup issues. Let's drop this database first. Use master. Let's go drop this database first. Let's create a new database. Put it into a full recovery mode. Let's use this database. Within this database, we'll create a table. And now we'll take the full backup also for this database. Now we'll start a transaction. We'll insert some data, generate some data for this, and insert it into the table. Let's create a transaction now, and we will not commit this transaction. And while this is running, let's take a look how this affects our database. If I quickly check SQLPERF LOGSPACE, this will give me on our database log backup issues is 94% full. And okay, if it's getting full, let's take a transaction log backup. When we take a transaction log backup, does the space got released? Oh, it's still 89% full. Why it is still 89% full? Maybe we need to take another log backup just to prove my point that it will not free up the space. Why is not freeing up the space? We can always check it using sys.databases table. Here we'll find a reason why the log is not getting full. So it says for this database, our database, it says that there is an active transaction. Now, which transaction is the active transaction that is causing this issue? We can try to check it in many ways, but I will show you the correct way of checking it later. Just bear with me. Generally, the DBAs run some version of SP-Huto and try to identify which one is the active transaction, and then if there are so many, which is the real culprit is a challenge. So you can run SP sessions, which will give you the session ID 72 in this particular case. And if you see 72 is sitting around here and it is an active transaction. We can narrow it down per database by using a function of SP sessions. For this database, which transactions are open? We can quickly sort that out. We can try the similar thing using SP who is active, or we can use other SP-Huto version like SP blitz who. Now, the right way to do this is it doesn't matter how many transactions are open. We need to be looking for the last transaction that is the oldest transaction that is active for this database. And if we check that, we find 72 is the oldest transaction. And if we look at what 72 is doing, we can pass in 72 SPID and quickly check it. Hey, what's this doing? It's sleeping right now with the open trend, and we can narrow down what it was running when it started this. Okay. Now, we can also check a couple of other things like the utilization of our log space. We can run DBCC log info, which is going to give you the similar log info as an older command, or you can run the DMV. This will give the same view. Any transaction that is any LSN that is active LSN, you will see a status 2. That means this part of the transaction log cannot release the space. Other where the value is 0 can release the space. We can quickly check with this particular query, how much is this transaction log that is still a space that is free. So we can see 58% of the log is active. Rest can free up space. Okay, great. In that case, we can either after knowing that, okay, we got this 72 SPID that is in sleeping state, we can make a decision and whether we would like to commit the transaction for this, or somebody left the transaction open, we can kill this session. That is one of the possibility to free up the log. If that is not possible, or you do not want to do that, then log cannot be freed up. That said, all these principles are valid for TempDB log space too, except when you are looking for TempDB log space, remember it is in simple recovery mode and only checkpoint releases the space. And checkpoint runs for TempDB log space for 70% when it's full. That said, for TempDB, you can manually run the checkpoint also if you need to after killing the session that is holding up that transaction, and maybe just leaving the transaction open for no particular reason, or you can have a conversation with the end user about this, why a long-running transaction is left open, which is filling up your TempDB or any user database log. That said, once the transaction is committed or rolled back, in this case, I will just simply roll back the transaction. Now, once the transaction is rolled back, we can see the usage by running DBCC LOGSPACE, and you can see it's still 90% full, but the wait is already gone. If you look at that log reuse wait, you will find it's already active transaction is still saying active transaction. Great. Still did not reflected it, but I think it's already released the lock, and we can verify that by looking at our LSNs. You can see most of those are already 0. Great. In this case, we can take the log backup to free up space. Let's go back and run that DBCC to check, or you can see that it's 19% freed up, which is a great thing. But in some cases, where log file is 100% full and this is not an option for you, you need to take the log backup. If it allows, you can try to take the log backup with null option, but after running this, you will need to understand that you already broken the chain of log backups. So take a full backup. Or in some scenarios, this is not possible or takes a very long time. You can simply take change the database recovery mode to simple, and the transaction is still open. That portion will not be that portion will still be active and not release space. Okay, you need to still go talk to the end user on that one. That said, you can monitor the log space, okay, using this particular query or any other third-party tool that you have. Now that we know that we have most of the space freed up, we can shrink and release space using DBCC shrink file, and that space will be released. And we can see the log space, log file size decreased. Okay. Why this happens, we can just quickly take a look at this from symptom perspective. Symptoms were that log file is getting full. We ran DBC SQLPERF to look at the space. We tried to take the log backup to reduce disk usage, reduce the size of the log file, and and then in some cases the log transactions, end user transactions are failing because it's 100% full. Log file is 100% full. Those are the common scenarios. And then in the root cause or the solutioning part of it, you need to understand that any transaction, part of the transaction that is open, this will be a good read for you guys. Let's take a look at the log file here. This is a log file with multiple LSNs. The first LSN, transaction 1 is started. On second LSN, transaction 2 started. Transaction 2 did an update on next LSN 144, it did a checkpoint occur. 145 LSN, transaction 1 committed. So transaction 1 committed from here to here, the first to now. Then a transaction committed here on 146. Okay. Then another checkpoint occurred, and then transaction 2 got updated. But transaction 1 committed here still will not be able to release space other than this first LSN is available for commit because this transaction got committed. So the oldest transaction in this case at this point at LSN 148, active transaction will be transaction 2. Okay, before it commits, obviously. Okay, so it will be a good read for you guys to understand how the transaction log works. And this is it for this video. Thank you.